Imagine for a moment that your body is not a static object, but a continuous roaring conversation between your environment and your genetic code. Every single day, your DNA sustains tens of thousands of individual hits, microscopic tears and glitches caused by the very air we breathe and the metabolic fire that keeps us alive. We often think of aging and disease as an inevitable slide into chaos. But what if the most sophisticated repair shop in the known universe wasn't a hospital or a laboratory, but was actually sitting on your dinner plate? We are discovering that health is not simply the absence of illness. It is an active biological defense state that we can choose to recruit every time we pick up a fork. There is a profound elegance in the way certain bioactive compounds, particularly those found in deep, leafy, cruciferous greens and sulfur-rich vegetables, interact with our internal architecture. When we consume these specific plants, we aren't just fueling an engine, we are sending a sophisticated software update to our cells. These foods contain molecules like sulforaphane, which act as a biological key, unlocking the NRF2 pathway, a master switch that floods our system with antioxidant enzymes. It is a silent internal alchemy where a simple meal translates into a molecular shield, physically knitting back together the frayed ends of our genetic blueprints and dampening the smoldering embers of systemic inflammation. This is where science meets a quiet kind of wonder. We used to believe our genes were our destiny, a rigid script written at birth that we were forced to perform. But the emerging field of epigenetics tells a much more hopeful story. We are the conductors of our own genetic orchestra. By choosing foods that support DNA repair, we are effectively telling our cells to silence the genes that promote swelling and amplify the ones that promote longevity. It is a daily practice of biological stewardship. We are learning that the body has an incredible, innate desire to heal itself, provided we give it the specific molecular tools it needs to do the heavy lifting. Think of inflammation not just as a medical term, but as a biological alarm that has forgotten how to turn itself off. In our modern world, we are constantly overstimulated and our cells feel that stress. However, certain foods possess the unique ability to act as a cellular mediator, calming the immune system's overactive response and restoring a state of physiological peace. When you eat for your DNA, you are participating in a form of preventative maintenance that is more powerful than any pill, because it works in harmony with the natural rhythms of human evolution. We have spent millennia evolving alongside these plants. Our bodies recognize their chemistry as a language of survival. Ultimately, this realization invites us to look at our health through a lens of profound self-compassion. Every cell in your body is working tirelessly, 24 hours a day, to keep you whole, to keep you vibrant, and to keep you here. When we choose to nourish ourselves with intention, we are honoring that labor. We are moving away from the fear of disease and toward a deep scientific curiosity about our own potential. It is a journey of 1,000 small repairs, a narrative of resilience written in the language of molecules and meals, reminding us that we have far more agency over our biological future than we ever dared to imagine. When we look at the history of medicine, we often find ourselves trapped in a defensive crouch, viewing health as the mere absence of a clinical diagnosis. We wait for the engine light to flicker on the dashboard before we lift the hood, treating the body as a machine that is either working or broken. But if we peer through the lens of modern molecular biology, a far more breathtaking reality emerges. Health is not a static state of being. It is an active, high-velocity defense system that is constantly being built, broken down, and fortified in real time. To understand this is to move away from the idea of avoiding sickness and toward the mastery of active defense. Our bodies are equipped with 5 key health defense systems: angiogenesis, regeneration, the microbiome, DNA protection, and immunity. And these systems do not just sit idle. They are hungry for instructions. Every moment of your existence, your body is performing 1 trillion tiny calculations to maintain equilibrium. This process, known as homeostasis, is the ultimate act of biological survival, but it is not a given. It requires a constant stream of information from the outside world to tell our cells how to behave. This is where the profound intersection of nutrition and cellular biology occurs. We must stop viewing food as a simple tally of calories or a collection of macronutrients like fats and proteins. Instead, we should view it as a sophisticated biological software update. When we consume specific plant-based bioactives, we aren't just filling a tank. we are providing the chemical code necessary to reboot these defense systems. For instance, when certain compounds enter the bloodstream, they act as signaling molecules that talk to our genes. They can tell our blood vessels to prune themselves back to prevent a tumor from being fed, or they can signal our stem cells to crawl out of the bone marrow and begin repairing a damaged heart valve or a worn-out joint. This shift in perspective, from passive health to active defense, changes the very nature of the meal. It transforms the act of eating into a deliberate engagement with our own longevity. We are essentially recruiting our own internal pharmacy. The one food mentioned in our discourse isn't a miracle cure in the traditional sense. Rather, it is a highly compatible piece of biological data. It contains the exact molecular keys needed to turn on the repair setting within our DNA. When we are stressed, malnourished, or exposed to environmental toxins, our biological defenses begin to lag, much like a computer slowed down by outdated software. By consistently introducing these specific nutrients, we are providing the system with the patches it needs to run at peak performance. This is the essence of active defense. It is the realization that we have a standing army inside of us, ready to fight inflammation and repair genetic fractures. But that army is entirely dependent on the logistical support we provide through our lifestyle and our choices. It is an empowering scientific truth that our health is a verb, not a noun. It is something we do rather than something we have. And the most powerful tools for this performance are found in the natural world, waiting to be integrated into the complex, beautiful machinery of our lives. The traditional view of our genetic code has long been one of a static, unchangeable blueprint, a book of life printed in indelible ink at the moment of our conception. We were taught that we simply had to live with the hand we were dealt, waiting for the inevitable errors to accumulate until the system eventually failed. However, a deeper, more reflective look at molecular biology reveals that our DNA is not a fixed monument, but a dynamic, living document that is being edited every second of every day. In fact, your DNA is remarkably fragile. It is under constant assault from oxidative stress, radiation, and the chemical byproducts of our own metabolism. If left to its own devices, this biological script would quickly become unreadable, riddled with typos that lead to chronic inflammation and the acceleration of aging. Yet we do not simply disintegrate. This is because the body possesses an extraordinary intrinsic intelligence dedicated to one primary task: genetic surveillance and repair. When we speak of repairing DNA, we are describing a sophisticated suite of enzymes that act like microscopic librarians, constantly scanning the strands of our genetic code to find breaks and mistakes. But these librarians cannot work in a vacuum. They require specific resources and chemical signals to stay sharp. This is where the profound power of nutrition enters the narrative. Certain foods contain bioactive molecules that act as high-level commands for these repair enzymes. Take, for example, the bioactive compounds found in cruciferous vegetables or the polyphenols in certain berries and seeds. These are not merely nutrients, they are instructions. They don't just provide the raw materials for repair, they actually increase the efficiency of the repair process itself. By consuming these foods, we are essentially giving our cellular maintenance crews the high-tech tools they need to patch the cracks in our foundation before they turn into structural failures. This dynamic nature of our DNA introduces a radical sense of agency into our lives. It means that the choices we make this morning at the breakfast table can influence the integrity of our genetic code by the afternoon. We are participating in a continuous molecular dialogue. When we choose foods that support DNA protection, we are telling our cells that the environment is safe, that resources are plentiful, and that it is worth investing energy into long-term maintenance rather than just short-term survival. This is the hallmark of longevity. On the other hand, a diet high in processed toxins and void of these bioactive repair kits sends a signal of scarcity and stress, causing the repair mechanisms to go dormant. In this state, the typos in our DNA accumulate, triggering the body's inflammatory response, a frantic biological smoke alarm that stays on because the underlying damage is never addressed. The beauty of this system lies in its resilience. Even if we have spent years neglecting this internal library, the body remains poised to begin the work of restoration the moment the right inputs are provided. It is a partnership between the human spirit and the biological machine. We provide the intent and the nourishment, and the body provides the miraculous, silent labor of knitting itself back together. This perspective invites us to see our bodies not as a collection of parts destined to break, but as a masterpiece in a state of perpetual self-creation. Every meal becomes an act of molecular stewardship, a way to ensure that the text of our life remains clear, vibrant, and free of the inflammatory noise that so often defines the modern human experience. We are not just the readers of our genetic story, we are its most influential editors, holding the pen with every choice we make. The transition from viewing our genetics as a rigid, inescapable destiny to a fluid musical arrangement is perhaps the most liberating shift in modern science. We were once taught that our genes were a hard drive, permanent, read-only files that dictated our health outcomes with cold mathematical certainty. But the field of epigenetics has revealed that our DNA is actually more like a piano keyboard. While the keys, our genes, are fixed, the music that is played, the symphony of health, is determined by the player. In this metaphor, the food we eat, the environment we inhabit, and even the thoughts we think act as the fingers on the keys, choosing which notes to strike and which to leave silent. This is the concept of epigenetic conductance, where we act as the conductors of our own biological orchestra, modulating the volume of our genetic expression in real time. At the heart of this process is a fascinating chemical mechanism called methylation. Think of these as tiny molecular silencers that can sit on top of a gene, effectively turning it off. When we consume specific bioactive compounds, the deep pigments in berries, the sulfur in garlic, or the dark leaves of a radish, we are providing the body with the chemical markers necessary to place these silencers exactly where they are needed. For example, we may carry genes that predispose us to chronic inflammation or rapid aging. However, if we feed the system the right information, we can tag those inflammatory genes to remain silent. Conversely, we can use these same nutritional signals to amplify the longevity genes, those survival sequences that repair tissue and optimize metabolism. We are not merely victims of our heredity. We are active participants in the ongoing dialogue of our cellular life. This realization brings a profound sense of responsibility, but also an immense sense of hope. It means that even if we have a family history of certain ailments, we possess the molecular tools to influence how those stories unfold within our own bodies. The inflammation that plagues so many in the modern world is often the result of an out-of-tune orchestra, where the loud, discordant notes of stress response genes are being hammered constantly while the soothing, reparative melodies are ignored. By choosing foods that act as epigenetic modulators, we are essentially retuning the instruments. We are calming the inflammatory noise and allowing the body's natural harmony to reemerge. This isn't about hacking the system or forcing the body to do something it wasn't meant to do. It is about providing the high-fidelity signals that allow our internal biology to express its most vibrant, healthy version of itself. There is a quiet philosophical beauty in this scientific truth. It suggests that our bodies are constantly listening to the world around us, waiting for a sign that it is time to heal, time to grow, or time to protect. When we choose a meal rich in these genetic conductors, we are sending a signal of safety and abundance to our very core. We are telling our cells that they don't need to be in a state of emergency. This allows the body to shift its energy away from the frantic, low-grade fires of chronic inflammation and toward the elegant, precision work of DNA maintenance. We begin to see our health not as a roll of the dice, but as a masterpiece in progress where every bite is a brushstroke. We are learning to speak the language of our cells, a language that is written in molecules, but felt in the clarity of our minds and the resilience of our bodies. This is the ultimate form of self-empowerment, the knowledge that while we cannot change the blueprint we were born with, we have every power to change how that blueprint is read, interpreted, and brought to life. To understand why certain foods possess the near miraculous ability to halt inflammation and repair our very essence, we must look backward into the deep time of our species. We often view our bodies as modern entities navigating a modern world, but our internal biochemistry is an ancient vessel, one that was forged in the crucible of the natural wild. For millions of years, our ancestors did not just eat for calories, they ate for information. We evolved in a constant, intimate dance with the plant kingdom, a relationship so profound that our bodies actually outsourced some of our most critical biological functions to the molecules found in the vegetation around us. This is the concept of evolutionary recognition. Our cells do not see a piece of broccoli or a clove of garlic as mere food. They recognize the sulfurous compounds and complex polyphenols within them as a familiar chemical language, a signal that the environment is providing the tools necessary for survival. This ancient dialogue is most evident in how our immune system interacts with plant bioactives to manage inflammation. In the wild, inflammation was a sharp, necessary tool, a localized fire used to heal a wound or kill a pathogen. In the modern world, however, that fire has become a global, low-grade smolder, fueled by processed sugars and environmental stressors. Our bodies are essentially stuck in a state of false alarm, searching for the chemical signals that tell the immune system to stand down. When we ingest the specific foods mentioned in our lecture, we are reintroducing those missing signals. The body recognizes these plant molecules as the all-clear signal. It is as if we are speaking to our cells in their native tongue, using a vocabulary of molecules that has remained unchanged for eons. These plants don't just fix us, they remind our bodies how to function as they were designed to. The resonance between human biology and plant chemistry is not a coincidence. It is a co-evolutionary masterpiece. Consider the way certain bitter compounds in greens interact with receptors in our gut and even our lungs. These receptors didn't develop by accident. They are there because our bodies expect these compounds to be present. When they are missing from our modern diet, our biological systems begin to drift into disarray, leading to the chronic swelling of the system we call inflammation. By returning to these specific potent foods, we are closing a loop that was broken by the industrialization of our diet. We are providing the body with the biological keys that fit perfectly into the locks of our cellular defense systems. This is why the impact of eating this one food can feel so transformative. It is the feeling of a system finally receiving the specific data it has been evolved to process for millennia. Furthermore, this evolutionary perspective invites a sense of profound belonging. We are not separate from the world we inhabit, we are a continuation of it. The very same molecules that a plant uses to protect itself from ultraviolet radiation or pests are the molecules our bodies harvest to repair our DNA and dampen inflammation. It is a beautiful, reciprocal economy of health. When we eat with this awareness, we move past the clinical coldness of nutrition and into a space of deep ancestral wisdom. We realize that our health is supported by a vast green network of life that has been preparing for our nourishment since before we were human. We aren't just fighting disease, we are reclaiming a biological harmony that is our birthright. We are using the ancient tools of the earth to quiet the modern noise within our veins, allowing our cells to return to a state of calm, efficient, and restorative peace. Stepping back from the microscopic machinery of enzymes and the ancient history of our species, we arrive at a place of profound biological stewardship. This is the ultimate realization that our health is not a battle to be won, but a relationship to be nurtured. A shift from the anxiety of preventing disease to the quiet, disciplined joy of cultivating wellness. We often live in our bodies as if we are mere tenants in a structure we don't fully understand, watching the walls for cracks and the pipes for leaks, fearing the day something inevitably breaks. But when we understand that we can actively recruit our own cellular repair teams through the simple act of choosing specific living foods, that fear begins to dissolve. It is replaced by a deep sense of compassion for the trillion-cell community that makes up the self. Every cell in your body is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, working with a singular, tireless purpose: to keep you whole, to keep you resilient, and to keep you present in the world. This perspective of stewardship invites us to look at our daily habits not as chores or restrictions, but as acts of profound self-respect. When we reach for the foods that have been scientifically proven to knit back the frayed ends of our DNA, we are essentially sending a message of support to our internal frontline workers. We are acknowledging that the labor they perform is vital. Inflammation, in this context, is seen as the body's desperate cry for help, a signal that the workload has become too heavy and the resources too thin. By providing the specific bioactives that dampen this fire, we aren't just fixing a symptom, we are answering that cry. We are telling our immune system that it no longer needs to stand on high alert, allowing it to redirect its immense energy toward more sophisticated tasks like cognitive clarity, tissue regeneration, and the vibrant maintenance of our longevity. This scientific stewardship is a practice of patience and curiosity. It encourages us to listen to the subtle cues our bodies provide and to respond with the exact molecular tools required for the job. It is a move away from the all or nothing mentality of modern dieting and toward a consistent, rhythmic integration of healing chemistry. We begin to understand that our biological future is not written in stone. It is being drafted in pencil, and we hold the eraser. Every choice to prioritize nutrient density over caloric convenience is a vote for a future characterized by vitality rather than decline. This doesn't require us to be perfect, it requires us to be intentional. It is about the cumulative effect of these small daily repairs, the way a garden isn't built in a day, but is the result of constant, gentle attention. Ultimately, this journey into the heart of our own biology leads us to a space of empowerment that is both deeply personal and universally human. We realize that we are the guardians of a miraculous process that has been refined over billions of years. By aligning our choices with the needs of our cellular defense systems, we honor that process. We move through the world with a different kind of confidence, one rooted in the knowledge that we are providing our bodies with the best possible chance to thrive. This is the heart of the message, that your health is a living, breathing dialogue between you and the natural world, and that by speaking the language of DNA repair and anti-inflammation, you are choosing to live a life that is not just longer, but more vibrant, more connected, and more profoundly alive. It is a philosophy of health that begins with science but ends in a state of grace, where we act as the compassionate caretakers of the most complex and beautiful system in the known universe.